statistical, mathematical fact
never has been down.
has broken every single record. There is no asset that has come close.
It's the only thing in the industry that was not touched, that was not hacked, and it never fails doing what it promised in 2009. It's never
What's
failed.
the best performing asset the world has ever seen? And you'll find out that it's Bitcoin. I appreciate all of you coming in, piping in to my live talk today, which is likely to be a very brief one on how OTC trading desks move large BTC amounts without moving price. And I did not have any intention of sort of coming on live throughout the holiday weekend, but I thought this was a great opportunity to touch on this topic. I get a great many questions regarding I get a great many questions that communicate the fact that a lot of people don't understand how big giant purchases, as well as sales for that matter, in some cases can take place without budging the USD denominated price of Bitcoin. And I get so many questions and have to answer them individually. I sort of felt that this was a perfect opportunity to put something out there to explain how this is done, why it's done, so that in the future I have a link to basically just copy and paste for the continued questions that I get on this topic. Now, OTC desk trading touches upon a world that I've been a part of for a very long time. I have a Wall Street career that dates back all the way to 1986. And this is my domain. This is largely what I did on Wall Street. I operated as a market maker responsible for accumulating large amounts of a specific stock without having a material effect on the price. And so I'm quite intimate with the OTC trading desks operations that are now very, very busy in the Bitcoin ecosystem or the Bitcoin space today. Now, I don't want to keep you too long because it is a holiday weekend, but let's delve in. And some of you might be encouraged to take some notes here, or at least to listen to this talk more than once if you really want to get an inside view of how OTC desks operate. And it's quite simple, so it's not going to take us a long time. Quickly, just a quick reminder that each and every one of these live talks do wind up on my Bitcoin podcast entitled or called Bitcoin Unleashed. Please seek out that podcast, excuse me, on any podcast platform of your choice. There is a link that I've pinned at the top of my profile that conveniently lists all the places that you can access Bitcoin Unleashed. Bitcoin Unleashed houses all of the former talks that I've had on X.com regarding Bitcoin. And it also includes a variety of clips, I think, that are now in the hundreds that deal with certain Bitcoin-oriented topics. I do want to remind you as well that by no means do I consider myself a Bitcoin expert. I don't believe that a Bitcoin expert actually exists. We're too early in our understanding of this somewhat unique, almost alien asset to that is now available to the human race. So I don't think that anyone can claim to be an expert. We're all learning in real time. I felt about a year and a half ago that it was that X.com would serve as a perfect medium for me to continue my journey down the Bitcoin rabbit hole and learn more and more in real time, to make mistakes in real time, to progress in real time. And I thought this was a great outlet to do it sort of together. I also want to quickly remind everyone that my time here on X.com is actually what I consider to be quite limited. I made a promise when I did come on board that I would be as active as I possibly could all the way until Bitcoin reached 100,000 in USD denominated terms, and then I'd be gone. What I'm doing here is somewhat unsustainable for me. But until that happens, I am here to try to answer each and every one of your questions, sometimes in a comical way, sometimes in a harsh way, but it is what it is. All right, guys. So let's talk about how OTC trading desks move large BTC amounts without moving the price. Now, the first thing I will say, the first thing I want to start off with is this. I responded recently to someone's earnest question about traders and the value that they provide to markets. What was being insinuated by this person's question was what was being insinuated is that traders don't deliver anything other than their greed-based activity. And as a lifelong trader in financial markets, I took somewhat of offense at that insinuation. And traders are extraordinarily important, and they are necessary for the efficient operation of markets. And it doesn't really matter what the markets. If traders were devoid of markets, they would be far more inefficient than they are. And that includes short sellers, buyers, short-term oriented day traders, to swing traders, to OTC desk traders. We need traders, guys. And as much as I knock them on the head for trading Bitcoin, they are a necessary component if we are to have efficient USD denominated markets here. And you'll understand what I mean by that when I explain what the role OTC desks play. Now, essentially, they facilitate these OTC trading desks, right? OTC stands for over the counter. Over the counter is just a fancy word that basically means off exchange. So Coinbase is an exchange. It's a centralized public exchange, right? Well, an OTC desk does not operate on exchange. They're not going to hit the Coinbase or the Kraken or the Binance buy and sell button. They're going to operate outside of those ecosystems, and essentially, they play a role in facilitating large trades without revealing the information about those trades publicly, because they're not doing the trade. They're not doing the exchange, which is nothing more than a trade, right? They're not doing the exchange on an exchange itself. They're basically swapping. Now, OTC trading desks, they primarily match buyers and sellers directly. That's all they really are responsible for doing. And they deal in large amounts. So an OTC trading desk is not going to take your order for, $500 worth of Bitcoin. They deal more on an institutional big player level. And their job is to basically find a buyer, they find a seller for a buyer and make the swap between each other. So let me give you an example of this. If any one of you, and I've made this point very clear, if any one of you were to get into a situation where you have to sell your Bitcoin, I'd actually want you to DM me. I would be glad, and I've done this hundreds of times. I would be glad to take your Bitcoin off of you. In fact, I'd be willing to give you a tiny premium on top of what you could get by just simply hitting the sell button on your centralized exchange. Now, if we do make a deal like that, we are making, and you sell your Bitcoin to me. So you send Bitcoin, I send a wire to your bank. All right. That transaction is not taking place on exchange. That's not taking place on a centralized exchange. That is taking place off exchange. So, in a way, we just conducted an OTC transaction, an off exchange transaction, which will have zero effect on the price. Our transaction is not going to be public on a public exchange. Nobody's going to know about it except us. Yes, it is on the Bitcoin time chain, of course, but it is not information that is available on any public or centralized exchange like a Coinbase or a Binance or a Kraken. And so that's essentially what these large OTC trading desks are doing. They're just simply matching people. They're people matchers. They're institution matchers. They're um, big wealth management company matchers. And they broker deals between the two parties. And so if uh, um, a client of the OTC trading desk operation says, listen, I want to get my hands on $1.1 billion worth of Bitcoin, the OTC desk will go to work on getting potential sellers to make up that 1.1 billion. That might be one player who is interested in offloading 1.1 billion, or it might be 40 different players that are willing to give up their Bitcoin, maybe at a slight premium, all right, to make up that 1.1. Once they have enough sellers to meet the 1.1 demand from the individual entity that wants to buy 1.1, they just simply make the swap. That swap of 1.1 from the sellers going to the wallet or the address of the 1.1 buyer has no effect on the price whatsoever. It is done off exchange. It is done in an off exchange OTC transaction. And a lot of people who are not aware of this, they are confused as to how this can happen without the price being moved because they're thinking from a retail perspective. Nobody with large size is going to operate on a Coinbase or Binance in that way. They might use Coinbase's OTC desk operation, but that's not going to show up on their centralized exchange. All right. And so it's important to understand how these operations work. Now, these transactions are not always, they're not always Bitcoin for Bitcoin. Sometimes they are other altcoins or shit coins for Bitcoin. Sometimes they are fiat for Bitcoin as well. So an OTC desk might not necessarily, you might have some OTC desks that specialize just simply in Bitcoin to Bitcoin transactions, but a lot of them will utilize other things as well. So someone who has, $2 billion of Ethereum and wants to swap that, they're going to have to go to work on two items now to get the guy 1.1 billion. Um, and someone uh, might be willing to utilize another asset. So it's not always Bitcoin to Bitcoin. Now, so it's Bitcoin to Bitcoin. Sometimes it's shit coins for Bitcoin. And sometimes it's fiat to Bitcoin as well. Now, again, the key thing to understand is that unlike exchanges, unlike these public exchanges like Coinbase, these OTC trades, they're relatively opaque, right? Um, that's they're quiet. The information is not publicly known, and it's what keeps prices and volumes pretty private. And so um, I always get the question in my trading circles, Oliver, why is it that you don't place a great deal of emphasis on volume today? And this is the reason. A lot of volume, guys, is invisible volume. It's volume that is not made public. It is not made public. It's volume that is off exchange that just basically doesn't show up. So much of the volume numbers you might see for a stock throughout the trading day is not the real volume number, because there's so much that's happening off exchange, swapping the shares back and forth in big amounts that don't show up in your intraday volume number. There are things such as dark pools of liquidity and gray pools of liquidity that are designed to hide the volume number, making the volume number you're watching throughout the day very, very incomplete. This did not exist when I first started in my trading career, but it exists today. And as a result of that, I pay a lot less attention to volume numbers. Now, let's talk very quickly about the two types of OTC trading desks that I think you should be aware of, right? So OTC trading desks, they typically fall into, I would say, two categories. There are principal OTC trading desks, principals, and then there are agency OTC trading desks. So let me explain the difference between those two. A principal OTC desk will assume risk by they're going to use their own funds to purchase the assets for buyers. So if someone wants $1 million worth of Bitcoin, if someone wants to sell $1 million worth of Bitcoin, they might actually buy it. Or if a person wants to buy $1 million in Bitcoin in a certain window of time, that principal desk might go into the market and actually start accumulating Bitcoin to the point where they have enough to make the swap from the Bitcoin they purchased to the person that wants to sell it. And what they will try to do is make a deal up front. So here's how it will work. Person says, listen, I'd like $1 million worth of Bitcoin. I'm willing to take it. I'm willing to buy it at $70,000 per Bitcoin. Now, OTC Desk has the deal. If they can go out into the market and buy the dips, right? Buy the micro dips, buy the medium sized dips, and get Bitcoin less than 70,000, they make the difference because they already made the deal with the client who's willing to take 70,000. So if Bitcoin dips to 69 and they're buying, if it dips to 69 and a half, they're buying. If it dips to 68 and 68,000.7, they're buying with guaranteed profit of delivering that Bitcoin to the client at 70,000. This is what I did on Wall Street. I was an institutional accumulator, all right? And I made the spread between the deals that were made and what I could go into the market and accumulate the item for. So if any of you have been with me for a while and you watch my accumulation style, I'm doing exactly what these OTC desks are doing. You'll see my accuracy for the most part in going into the market and being able to grab the bottom or close to the bottom, buying the pullback to the downside with the idea of that being temporary. That comes from, you know, years and years of accumulating in an institutional way assets for clients that I had a locked in price for. And so these principal desks are they are in now two businesses. The regular OTC desk is in one business, matching their buyers with sellers and taking a fee. All right. The principal OTC desks is in both of them. They might match buyers, but they also might risk their own capital by going into the markets to be the buyer of Bitcoin in these scenarios where they have a locked in price from the client. The client wants 70. If they believe they can get Bitcoin less than 70, they're going to risk their own capital to buy it themselves in the open market and then deliver that Bitcoin at 70,000. And they will take the fee and the spread. Okay. And the spread between what they purchased, maybe their average price is 69.4. And so they have a $600,000 spread between the 70,000 that they are obligated to deliver the Bitcoin for and the 69.4 average price that they actually went out into the open market to accumulate for. All right. So those are called principal desks, right? Then there's the agency desk. Now, an agency desk will act as an intermediary, right? They broker deals without risking their own funds. Okay. So they basically just charge a fee. And so they're they're not into putting a single dollar from their pocket into the market. They have a large roster of potential buyers and sellers, and they basically work on a relationship based model where they wine and dine clients and give them Super Bowl tickets and stuff like that to ensure that whenever they're ready to sell or buy in large amounts, they're going to do it with them. That's the old Wall Street model, which is very relationship based. So, so the OTC desks fall into these two categories: those willing to risk their own capital to go out into the market to buy Bitcoin to match some of the demand that they get from clients. Those are principal desks. Then they're just agency desks. We're just going to match buyer and seller. Now, why are these desks or these trading operations important? They enable large investors and institutions to trade significant or exchange significant amounts without affecting the market price. And guys, when you're playing at this level, you're not going to use Coinbase, guys. That's retail. You're not going to use Kraken. You're not going to use Binance. You're not going to use these exchanges that you're used to. All right. Nobody's going to do that. Even with my small amounts, I'm not using a centralized exchange to buy. I'm using an OTC desk to buy, and my buys are tiny in comparison. So if I won't even do it, nobody's going to do it for 1.1 billion. Now, this little brief talk of mine was spurred by our becoming aware of the fact that the other day, some entity sent $1.1 billion of USDC to Coinbase. Now, I made a post about this saying there's only one reason that someone that large would send $1.1 billion um, in the form of USDC to Coinbase, and it is to buy. You don't send $1.1 billion to Coinbase to sell, and you don't send $1.1 billion to Coinbase to just sit there. Guys, nobody at that level is going to trust a Coinbase. I don't care if they're publicly traded. They're not going to trust Coinbase with $1.1 billion just sitting there in the form of cash earning interest. They have far better options to earn interest at without risking it on a crypto casino. All right, they're not going to do it. So the idea, you have to understand, when you're operating at this level, if they're moving big amounts of cash like that to what they consider to be an inadequate resting place for their money, it is only going to be there a very short period of time. The only reason it's not to gain 5%, it's to buy, and it's to buy now for the most part. All right. And so I made that post uh, uh, was very fascinating, and a few of you actually sent me what appeared to be that $1.1 billion going into the market. And I think that's a good assumption that the $1.1 billion purchase of Bitcoin on Coinbase that was recently just revealed is likely to be the $1.1 billion of USDC that was sent to Coinbase's OTC desk just a couple days ago. Now, if it's not, then that's even more bullish. But I think we can safely assume that that's the same entity with the money in and the money out into Bitcoin. And again, I knew that we were going to see something relatively quickly because no one at that level is going to sit $1.1 billion on a crypto casino exchange. It's not going to happen. In and out really, really fast. All right. Now, these OTC desks are very unlike regular exchanges, right? As we mentioned, they provide liquidity for the big guys. The liquidity in the retail arena is just simply not there. It's not there in big amounts. And so it is a bit more complex for big players to get into Bitcoin with size. It takes some time, and it takes some skill by the OTC desks, and it takes some very strong relationships. And a lot of these Bitcoin exchanges that happen with OTC desks, a lot of times they happen at a premium, or in a bear market, they'll happen at a discount. But in a bull market like what we're experiencing now, they will tend to happen at a premium. So you might have that transaction might be for less Bitcoin, $1.1 billion might be the USD denominated price, but they might get less Bitcoin than equates to $1.1 billion at the current price level. They're getting, because no one's giving up in a bull market that amount of Bitcoin unless they get some extra juice on it over and beyond the current price. And this oftentimes works in reverse during a vicious bear market where Bitcoin is accelerating to the downside as well. They'll have to transact at a lower price for size often. So that's basically it. I wanted to to primarily clear the air with how big amounts can go back and forth and be exchanged and bought and sold without having any material effect on the market itself. Now, the last thing I will say, and I'll take some questions if you have them. Last thing I will say is this. In a way, it's sort of unfair to say that these OTC or off exchange transactions or swaps between big players have no material effect on the market. That's true. But let me explain to you how, in a way, in a small way, or in a hidden way, that's not altogether true. Because the when a big player wants to buy $1.1 billion in Bitcoin, they might have to use a principal desk for that. And remember, a principal desk goes out, risk their own capital to buy the Bitcoin prior. And then once they've accumulated enough Bitcoin for that $1.1 billion purchase, they make the transfer. Now, these OTC desks going out with their own capital into the market, buying the dips, right? Buying the pullbacks, that is having some effect on the market. It's providing an institutional bid in the market. It's providing an institutional size buy pressure in the market, which is having the effect of Bitcoin not being able to dip that low when it does dip. All right. And so in that way, these orders do sort of affect the market. They tend to affect the market before they happen, though, by just putting a floor in. So this $1.1 billion probably caused a few days, the dip that we saw due to the overhang with record open interest in the options market. There was a small dip that occurred after those options expired. That little dip was probably small, all right, smaller than it normally would have been had this $1.1 billion accumulation play wasn't in effect. And so the actual transfer that takes place has zero effect. That's just basically sending, that's basically just changing the wallet on Bitcoin's time change. That has zero effect on the market. But what they did prior to get that $1.1 billion had some effect on the market if it was a principal desk order. All right. So I hope that sort of clarifies things for you. And again, it's basic. It's really, really simple to understand. And the way I typically always explain it to people is, well, if you and I swapped Bitcoin and I gave you cash for your Bitcoin, would that have an effect on the market, and would that be public information? And the answer is no. Now take that exponentially to a much bigger amount, and that's exactly how it's done and the purpose for OTC trading desks. So just remember the two types: principal desks, they're going out into the market and buying or selling, and agency desks, they're just marrying buyer and seller together. They're risking no money of their own at all. All right. All right, let's see what questions you have, guys. Let's see here. Grayson Andrew is saying, Oliver, I remember back in August and September at in the $25,000 price area for Bitcoin, how it felt like it couldn't go up, but down only, right? Now it also feels like Bitcoin can't break down, but up only, right? The market is simply following its usual pattern. I don't, this is a marketing thing here. Tariq Pierce is looking forward to this space. Tariq, I'm hoping that, any questions you might have had have been answered by this brief definition. I knew it was going to be relatively short because it's pretty basic. Now, I think the key walkaway here, guys, is that your Bitcoin is disappearing. No one buys $1.1 billion worth of Bitcoin with the idea that they're going to flip it next week or next month or even next year, guys. It's not going to happen. You don't operate at that level with that short period of time. And in my world, 18 months and out was your basic time frame. So your minimum time frame when you did large accumulations, you were accumulating with your mindset 18 months in the future. You're not accumulating for today. You're accumulating for 18 months in the future. These buyers, these institutional buyers, are thinking 18 months out. I'm telling you, I've been in this world for 4 decades. That's the standard, right? That's the standard time frame for your mindset when you're making mass accumulations. And so your Bitcoin is being gobbled up and it's not being let go. At least not now, it's not. And so this is a rapidly disappearing asset. And these players know this. It's the retail sector that does not get a feel for this so much. All right. They're not sophisticated to understand. They're not sophisticated enough in mass to understand that this is disappearing because they confuse availability with disappearance. So they feel that since I can always log on to Coinbase and buy and sell anytime I want to, how can you say it's disappearing? Availability is very different from scarcity. It's becoming scarce. It's available, but it's becoming more and more scarce. This $1.1 billion that just was taken off the market, for lack of a better phrase, you're not going to see that for a long time, guys. It's not going to be released for a long time. And maybe never. Maybe never. I'm not the only one who's accumulating with the idea of never letting go. Let go for what? Let go into what? To go back to the dollar? That everyone knows the printing press is already running at fast speeds and it's about to go freaking ballistic. There is zero doubt about that. So you don't want to go back to that. They're escaping that. They're preempting the printer going burr at a rate that has never been seen before. It's baked into the cards. It has to happen. So they're escaping that. They're not going to go back to that in mass, I'm telling you. And then go back into what? To go back into what? Well, maybe stocks. Probably not, since Bitcoin trounces stocks. All right. They're understanding more that why would I go back to second or third best when I already have the best? Why do I go back to dollars and the printing press is running at top speed and about to go to levels we've never seen before? All right. And the only thing is left after that is bonds and real estate. Well, bonds are proving to be the worst possible investment you can be in today. And the bond market has had the worst performance. Guys, get this. Bond markets, which used to be the domain of the wealthy and nation states, the super mega wealthy and nation states, They operated largely in bonds, some in stocks, but bonds in a very, very big way, right? And I want you to think about this. It's the largest market in the world, right? One can argue that real estate might be up there along with bonds, but let's put that to the side for the most part. Between stocks and bonds, bonds is far larger as a market. And think of this, the largest market in the world had the worst performance over the last year and a half, had the worst performance since 1812. Now, I'm a student of the markets, guys, and I'm telling you, the last time bonds performed this terrible was in 1812. And you don't think that people are looking to escape that? That's crazy. And where are they going to escape to? They're going to escape, increasingly so, to Bitcoin. It offers the highest degree of liquidity. It offers 24-hour access. It offers global characteristic. It offers no ability for another nation state to affect what you have. And so, guys, the avalanche that is likely to come from these failing other assets, in particular bonds, in particular fiat currencies, those are the two big ones, guys. The two big ones there's really three markets that Bitcoin is going to drain. All right. They're going to drain cash, okay? Because cash is trash and about to become even trashier. So think currencies, think global currencies. A person is going to take a portion of their cash and cash equivalents, and they're going to sock it away in Bitcoin. So it's going to attack the currency as a store where people used to store a certain percentage of their, which is now one of the worst things you can have. It's the worst performance since 1812. Okay. And it's going to drain gold, which is proving, despite it being at all-time new highs, it's still proving to really be, to have lost its luster. We are in the throes of gold's perfect scenario to skyrocket. And all it's doing is crawling. And if you can ever have proof, if there was ever proof that gold is the senior citizen that you can't expect to play like Michael Jordan anymore, it's this. Because you couldn't paint a better picture for gold to skyrocket. This is the dream scenario for gold to blast off into the stratosphere, and it's crawling at best, standing still at worst, not even close to keeping track with the M2 money supply. And so gold is being demonetized, will be demonetized by Bitcoin at an accelerating rate. Bonds, a $300 trillion market, will be demonetized to a certain extent in an accelerated rate. And of course, fiat currencies around the world, especially when the printers start kicking into extra high gear. They will seek refuge in Bitcoin. And so the best years is not, they're not behind Bitcoin. They are in front of us. If you think Bitcoin for the first 15 years was something, beating every single asset by orders of magnitude, the best performing asset on planet Earth, in less than 15 years, reaching above $1 trillion in value. And within the first 15 years, beating every single asset in every conceivable category you can come up with, becoming the ninth most valuable asset on planet Earth as a baby, and becoming the 16th most valuable currency in the world. If you think that's something, I think Bitcoin is going to put its past to shame. And so the best is in front of us. It is not behind us. All right, guys, what else here? What else have you got here? Let's see. Let's see here. Block this dude here. All right, Ben Clayson says dips are going on. I can't believe the trading volume averages 400,000. Wow, I've never seen this volume in any stock. Yeah, because stocks are not global, and Bitcoin is. We are placing a great deal of our attention on the new 9. There are 10 US spot Bitcoin ETFs. There are 9 new ones. GBTC's spot Bitcoin ETF is not considered new. So if you conclude that one, it's 10 in total. There are 22 new spot Bitcoin ETFs that will be approved next month in Hong Kong. 22, guys. And Asia holds, or let's just put it this way, there are roughly 550 of the world's multi-billionaires in Hong Kong and China, and 22 spot Bitcoin ETFs are being approved next month. Those billionaires want in. And what's really fascinating is that they're slated to be in kind, not cash create ETFs, which basically means these billionaires or the Asian population that buys the spot Bitcoin ETFs in Hong Kong, they will be able to exit or cash out of the ETF with Bitcoin. So it's not paper Bitcoin. It is actual Bitcoin. They can request the ETF, just send the Bitcoin to their cold storage wallet. That's freaking crazy. And if you think that the disappearance of Bitcoin is happening at this astounding rate now, just wait until these 22 Hong Kong in-kind spot Bitcoin ETFs get launched. It's about to get freaking crazy, guys. Then you have the UK just announced that they will approve the country's first spot Bitcoin ETN. They call them ETNs there. But it's only for accredited investors. So, but that's a huge first step as well. And it's going to continue and go on and on and on. The world is coming, and they're coming for your Bitcoin. And these types of players that are coming, They're not freaking traders. They're not crypto bros. They're not looking to flip on some one of Bitcoin's pumps like you guys are. Some of you guys are. They're in this to hold this for generations. They're looking to protect what they have amassed and are starting to understand more and more. My greatest protection is Bitcoin. Happy birthday, Mr. Oliver. My birthday was a while ago, but I'll take it. You're welcome. So where do the OTC desks go to find Bitcoin supply? From you, Martin. What I believe that you're asking is where do the principal desks go get it from? They buy the dip, man. They get it from you. So think of it this way, guys. Think of it this way. So Coinbase is, this might be too strong of a phrase, but I'll use it anyway. So Coinbase has an OTC operation that is completely legally different and apart from their crypto exchange, right? For retail. So when their retail clients are selling Bitcoin because of a dip, their OTC desk could be taking that Bitcoin for an order for a $1.1 billion order they have. So they're just swapping it from one wallet address to another wallet address, their OTC wallet address. And because it's internal, you don't see that. Do you understand? So please understand that your Bitcoin held on exchange is invisible. It's invisible. You can't verify even if the Bitcoin is there. It's invisible Bitcoin. And they simply just change a digit on the screen. Okay, you want to sell it? Now the digit on your screen changes and the digit on their OTC desk wallet changes. You understand? So this is not really taking place. This is not taking place publicly. It's a behind the doors it's behind closed doors transaction. And so their separate OTC desk, they're trading against their retail clients. That's not illegal, by the way. But you're selling and their OTC desks, if they have the buy orders from clients that want them accumulating Bitcoin from them, they're just swapping it into their wallet, the OTC desk wallet. And when they have enough, they make the exchange with the buyer. Ben Clayson is talking about the 1812 drawdown of bonds. He says the 1812 downward from the bond market and war pushed it into the 1819 crash. That is correct. He's saying cash will be drained from the market, and don't be surprised that 10% of the population moves into Bitcoin when this happens. Even an increase in 2%. Imagine the exponential growth of BTC. Absolutely. And, I do see continued bank failings and problems as interest rates have to be maintained at elevated levels for longer periods of time. I think this is to be expected. And I think this is going to have the effect of increasing people's awareness that, you know what, I'm actually not as safe in cash at the bank as I thought. And And um, most people have not had to deal with that fear of, is my cash in the bank where I'm holding my my entire accumulated life, my savings, my checking, some CDs or whatever. Most people don't have never had to live with the fear, what if that's lost? But remember, guys, there's a big world out there that they're not really protected over and beyond the FDIC FDIC insurance, which is, depending upon your level, $250,000 per account, right? So there are people that they have to hold, let's say, you know, 8 million to $20 million in cash at a time at a bank. There might be a big organization that has payroll every 2 weeks and has to keep large amounts of cash on hand that are way over and beyond their protection in the bank. They've got business operations that make that small amount, just they can't have 2 million different accounts to stay under that $250,000 insurance level. So when you're operating at that level, you start to get really shaky if banks start to fold and have issues. And you're like, holy shit, I've got $20 million that I have to have on hand here. And when that confidence starts to be shaken or chipped away at, as it did in the beginning of 2023, when we had a series of bank failures at the time, that can get real serious and it could collapse the entire financial system that is really nothing more than a house of cards. And so ultimately, that will happen. You want to be protected. And I will say this, and do I think it's going to happen in short order where banks just start failing and people start running for the exit signs like we saw in Lebanon? I don't think so, not in the United States, but it will happen one day. It always has. Every system falls and it's going to fall. Question is that 50 years from now? Is that 20 years from now? Is that 100 years from now? We don't know. But I will tell you this, if and when it happens or starts to happen, it will be too late to react. So you have to be protected with a portion of your family's holdings and wealth outside of that system. All right? You can't tell me that system's not broken, where the US dollar's lost 99.8% of its value since 1913. Debt is skyrocketing at the point of $1 trillion every 90 days. You can't tell me that's not a broken system. And you can't tell me that can go on for a very long time either. It's just simple maths, no? And you had better be protected, because if and when the shit hits the fan, you will not have an exit sign. When someone yells fire in the theater, in the crowded theater, you're getting trampled, buddy. The exit is so little, and you got millions of people, tens of millions of people rushing for a little tiny exit because someone yells fire in the theater. You're not getting out. You're dead. You have to be out before someone yells fire in a crowded theater. Bitcoin's your freedom from this clown world. It is your exit outside of the theater before it's time to leave the theater. Well, I wouldn't even say that. It's been time to leave the theater for a long time, actually. All right. Yeah, most buying and selling of Bitcoin is not visible on the blockchain. Yes, the buying and selling within centralized exchanges is not visible on the blockchain. It's just swapping digits on a screen, which is why I'm always telling you guys, don't hold fake Bitcoin. What's fake Bitcoin? Bitcoin supposedly sitting on an exchange. I wouldn't be surprised, guys, that if when you send money to a centralized exchange to buy Bitcoin and you press the buy button, that there is no purchase being made. They're just reporting a pseudo purchase on your screen. You understand? So it's just all of a sudden it appears on your as a digit on your screen as if you have Bitcoin, but in many cases, there's nothing actually done because they already have Bitcoin, so they can deliver Bitcoin whenever you want to withdraw. But they're not taking your money and buying Bitcoin because you hit their stupid little buy button. They're just issuing a digit on your screen. That's fake Bitcoin. And the only way to make it real is to say, Coinbase, I'm withdrawing it, send it here. Now they have to send you real Bitcoin. Now, if you read the fine print in these centralized exchanges, they don't have to give you Bitcoin. Do you understand? They're obligated to give you dollars. They are not obligated to give you Bitcoin. So you need to withdraw while you can withdraw because legally they're not obligated to give you Bitcoin when you want to withdraw. Think about this. They're doing it, but they're not legally obligated. So there's a point in the future where these exchanges might say, you know what? We're going to operate like the ETFs now. You can buy Bitcoin through us, and we'll put a digit on your screen as if we actually bought it for you. But when you want to leave, you're going to have to cash out. We're going to send you cash for the value. This day could come, guys, which is why you can't have your Bitcoin sit on these things if you really want the real thing. And if you feel that it's not important to have the real thing, then I don't know how to speak to that level, that low of an IQ level. I don't know how to communicate down there. That no, Oliver, I don't want the real thing. I think that not having the real thing is better. If that's your mindset, then I have nothing to say to you. But I am telling you, you better get your hands on what is yours. And you better stop trusting other men to hold your family's future for you, to hold your escape, to hold your freedom in the hands of another man. History has proven that that doesn't work, that has never worked, that we're always fucked in the end with that. So I am telling you, this is your freedom. This is your family's future. This is your escape if shit really hits the fan. And you better not have that escape in the hands of some other man because you will never get it. They'll give you the melting ice cube, but they're not going to give you the real thing when shit hits the fan. Get your Bitcoin off of these exchanges. This is not a drill, people. All right, let's see what else. Uh-oh, what am I doing? What kind of premiums do OTC desks command, if any? Well, that depends on the deal that they make, right? And it can be all over the place, Sunny Pooh. It could be 2%, it could be 10%. It just depending upon size and difficulty in acquiring. Um, it could depend on the speed with which the market is moving. All right. It could depend on the time that it could depend on the deal that's struck between the buyer and the seller. So remember, the agency desks, they're just marrying buyer and seller. And so a deal has to be made that also gives the OTC desk a fee on top of the deal that is struck between the buyer and seller. Or the agency desk will go to the the players and they just broker the deal. And when both parties agree, they add their fee on top of that, and boom, it's done. Right? So it just, it depends on where the deal is made, what premium the deal is made at. All right. So the larger the size, probably the larger the premium. The faster the market is moving, the larger the premium. All right. The the greater the difficulty. So if scarcity is really running rampant and there's just not a lot out there, you gotta pay up to basically get people to let go of the Bitcoin. So guys, if at 70,000, no one that the people willing to sell Bitcoin at 70,000 dries up, then you have to offer 71 and 72 to 75 to allow to entice those who don't want to give it up at 70. Maybe they'll give it up at 71. Maybe they'll give it up at 72. So you have to raise your bid. You got to raise your marketed price of where you're willing to buy. If you can't get enough at 70, there's not enough people willing to let go at 70. So then let me see if people are willing to let go at 71. And boom, the market moves to 71. And then if all the supply, all the people willing to get rid of their Bitcoin at 71 dries up again, and there's still demand at 71, but there's not enough supply to meet the demand, then the players say that want Bitcoin say, well, since I can't get enough at 71, maybe some people will be willing to let go at 74. And then boom, the market moves to 74. And that's how markets move up. You exhaust the people willing to sell at the current price without exhausting the demand. And so, guys, future demand for Bitcoin is only one way. There's only half of 1% of the world in Bitcoin right now. So there's 99.5% more left of demand. It's not going down from it's not going down from 0.5. It's not going down from there. It's only going up, which is why you should take the word sell or profit take out of your vocabulary. You don't profit take on something or think about selling something when it's off the ground, 0.5% off the ground. That's freaking ridiculous. You don't sell when half of 1% of the world is in. It's crazy. Find some freaking patience. Find some loyalty once in your life to something that's proven to you over and over again that it's number one in every category. The best by orders of magnitude, never broke its promise, continues to do what it said it's going to do 15 years ago. Have some freaking patience with it. Find some loyalty. You've given your loyalty to other bullshit that's orders of magnitude less than Bitcoin. It's time to find some patience and some loyalty for the best thing on planet Earth right now. And lower that time preference and stop thinking like a freaking degenerate trader and stop listening to these crypto bro bozos drawing lines and circles on freedom. Oh, well, your exit sign, your exit from this corrupt, broken system is overbought now. It's ridiculous. All right, guys, listen. Just wanted to clear up Oh, wait. Eric says, are the OTC desks open 24/7? Wouldn't you be? If you could potentially, especially as a principal desk, if you could pick up cheap Bitcoin over the weekend to make more money, wouldn't you be operational 24/7? Of course. Of course they are. All right. Uh, Ovi, where are you on the ordinals issue? Well, Bart, I have to be honest with you and say that I'm torn. You know, it's like I have mixed feelings here. It's sort of like Senator Warren going off a cliff in my brand new Maserati. You know, it's like I don't know. My I'll tell you how I'm split this way. Bitcoin is the f- is the representation of the first time we have a base layer of money that is available to every single person on earth in a fair, decentralized, uncensorable way. And so, who are we to really dictate how someone uses that base layer of value? Who am I to say, you're not, we're not going to let you use Bitcoin this way if they're paying to use it that way? I mean, the whole idea of Bitcoin is that it's getting away from some group of people telling you what you can do and what you can't do with your own value. And in that way, think it's stupid, it's dumb, it's low IQ stuff. But who am I to say that you can't use Bitcoin the way you want to use Bitcoin? So that's one way. The other way is that using the hardest money on planet Earth that's ever existed, the scarcest asset on Earth, the hardest asset humans have ever come in contact with, and to use it for this non-monetary use right now is the lowest of the lowest of the lowest IQ activity. That it's a huge missing of the mark. It is a huge missing of the big picture, the play here. Bitcoin's going after all value in the world, and your interest in it is a freaking monkey picture. But my dad always used to say, you can't fix stupid. Now, do I have a right to tell someone to dictate their level of stupidity? Not really. And so if people want to be stupid, miss the mark, I don't know if I should have the power or take the stance that I should stop them. I think Bitcoin is able to take care of itself in this regard, and that the forces of basic economics will ultimately dictate over time whether that is truly something that should stay, that it has a marketplace, a market fit, or if it's just a fad that's going to come and go like Beanie Babies. or something like that. So we'll see. That's my take on it. All right. All right, guys. How many people do I have here? Let's see. I don't even know here. Oh, over 100 some odd people. Well, listen, guys, thank you for joining me on this impromptu talk. Once again, all of this talk, as well as all of my prior ones, will wind up on Bitcoin Unleashed. You can find that pinned at the top of my profile. I want you to enjoy the rest of your Saturday, enjoy the rest of your weekend. Happy Easter to those who celebrate that. Don't forget, go to work, stack hard. My name is Oliver Velez, and I am your 13%er Bitcoiner. Be safe out there, and until next time. Boom!